you have been writing for the last few weeks about a series of unsolved gangland murders. One at the weekend involved the double murders of John Hall and David McIntosh. It's the 25th anniversary of that crime. Are police any nearer to solving this?
Yeah, this has been running for the last 6 weeks or so, looking at the unsolved gangland murders because they traditionally are the hardest ones to solve. For example, uh, members of the criminal community are not known for cooperating with the police. They don't come forward. They don't give information. Members of the public can be quite often reluctant to get involved. Sometimes the view's taken that those who live by the sword die by the sword. It's criminal on criminal. People don't want to get involved. People are obviously apprehensive. If they do get involved, there could be repercussions or retributions.
Mhm.
Generally, police often find that when they do have a murder involving a gangland figure, then there's very little information coming forward. It's slightly more different now with the more recent events because you've got things like CCTV, proliferation CCTV, mobile phone triangulation, which you can track people's movements through their phones and use of digital devices like laptops. But a lot of these cases that we've looked at are more historical. They kind of predate the sort of CCTV that we've now got, and obviously smartphones which track your movements. So we've actually looked at two situations. One, as you mentioned, there was the murders of John Hall and David McIntosh. They were found, they'd been shot dead. Their bodies were dumped in a kind of disused scrapyard in Lark Hall. They were found by a couple of people out walking, passers-by. They both been shot dead in the car. One of the car they'd been travelling in been set on fire the previous night. They'd been at a greyhound race meeting down in Gretna. They said goodbye to their families, and effectively they're found dead the following afternoon, suggesting they'd probably been killed the previous evening, lured to some sort of meeting. It's one of these crimes that nobody really is quite sure what the motive was. The suggestion was that both John Hall and David McIntosh had ran up quite a substantial drugs debt to a major organised crime figure from the Paisley area, which we can't name for legal reasons. The debt was for cocaine. It's about £120,000. The cocaine, we understand, had been seized, but obviously they were then unable to pay for it. The story was that they'd given the cocaine to an associate who stored it in a locker at his work, had then been recovered by the police. So the two men didn't have their cocaine, and they didn't have the means to pay it. And the suggestion is that the person to whom they owed money had given up. He'd waited 10 months for it. He'd lost patience. And in the world of organised crime, the one thing you can't run up is debt. It doesn't really matter the size of the debt. The person who's sold them the drugs, he's got his reputation to think of. If he's seen as an easy touch that could be bumped for money, then other people are going to do that. So that seems to be the suggestion. They'd taken this cocaine on credit. There were probably a couple of small time dealers trying to move up the ladder, but it cost them their lives. The other one we looked at was, again, a similar sort of type of case. The John Hall, David McIntosh one was from October 2001. The following year, in fact, a year later, this is a guy, Billy Sibbald. He's a publican in Edinburgh. He runs a bar in the Portobello area. He used to run a sauna called the Orchard House in the Newtown area. He leaves his wife. They live in the Joppa area of Edinburgh. He goes to a meeting on the Tuesday night, summoned to a meeting, says goodbye to his wife, kisses her on the cheek, see you later, and then never returns home. His body is found about 3 months later in January 2003, just on the outskirts of Edinburgh, near a sort of mining village called New Craig Hall. He's been he's been stabbed. Most of his clothing's missing. Quite a lot of valuables that he had on his person, they're missing as well. Again, it was one of these ones like the John Hall, David McIntosh. Police hit a bit of a wall of silence that remains unsolved to this day. Again, in this way, there's numerous theories abound. Again, the main one seemed to be some unpaid drugs debt, suggestion he was owed £100,000 on drugs, and that the person who'd sold him the drugs was basically calling in the debt. He's maybe gone to that meeting thinking the debt could be resolved. That doesn't appear to be the case. But there was also suggestions that his murder could have been linked to his previous business interests in the sauna. At that time, there was a lot of kind of Eastern European elements moving into the sauna trade, often with girls trafficked from Eastern Europe. And it had even been suggested that the Russian mafia were involved, that he owed money to them over girls that had been supplied to him that he hadn't paid for. So again, a real whodunit. And I wonder whether the police acknowledged at the time and even now that there wasn't a lot of information coming forward from the public. And again, highlights how difficult these cases are to solve.
Yeah, and also highlights how they'll be wanting to get on the gangland crimes that we're seeing just now as fast as they can, using the modern technology they now have to tackle that.
We're seeing the modern technology, the EncroChat, where they've basically accessed text messages and other sort of messaging, and we've got the CCTV, we've got the mobile phones, we've got the laptops, the digital devices that are used where you can track people's activities. We didn't really have that then, didn't have the smartphones. Mobile phone usage was just taking off. It was starting to get widespread, but the early mobile phones were harder to trace. There wasn't the CCTV we have now. We've got, you know, police wearing body cams. We've got CCTV in every corner. We've got doorbell cameras. We've got the cameras in cars and what have you. But that didn't exist then, and that's part of the reason that people commit these crimes under sort of cover of darkness, literally. But now with the sort of modern technology and sophistication and surveillance society, often there's really nowhere to hide now.